You ever get the feeling that everything you do is invisible? Like, you could spot a burning building and people would walk right past you for a better view? That was me, Maya William, just another server in a rented vest and non-slip shoes, slipping through million-dollar ballrooms where my name never stuck. Except one night, it all flipped, because I spoke up, even when the smart move was to shut up. You know what I mean? It started with a number, slide 12, some ridiculous projected growth rate on a deck I glimpsed as I was refilling water. I didn't plan to notice, but the math just screamed wrong at me. I leaned in and whispered, "That's the wrong formula," to Meera Patel, the analyst presenting, and you'd have thought I'd set off an alarm. Next thing, Randall Kane, big shot, all jaw and gray temples, hauls me into a security room like I'm a corporate spy. "I'm just a server," I tell him, but he only sees someone who shouldn't speak. "That's infiltration," he says. "No, I just care about getting numbers right, even if I'm the only one who sees them." They grilled me under the harsh light, asking who I worked for, what I was after. I kept my voice steady, maybe for my mom, who raised me to know silence doesn't fix what's broken. Then the security chief comes back after reviewing footage. She didn't touch anything. She just noticed a mistake. Randall's fuming, but right then, the CEO, Blake Thornwell, walks in, smooth, silver hair, eyes like a scalpel, and suddenly everyone's tense. "Would you show me the error?" he asks, and when I nod, he finds a whiteboard, hands me a marker DSO. Imagine this. Me, in catering uniform, standing in front of a mahogany table, all these suits watching, while I circle cells and explain that the entire projected growth model's backwards. The return rate is inflated, and if investors catch on, there's a lawsuit waiting. I can see Randall twitching. Meera, though, she gets it. "She's right," she whispers. Blake listens, really listens, and suddenly the mood shifts. The math doesn't care about job titles. Numbers are numbers. That was the high point. But let me back up a sec. No one gives you credit for telling the truth when you look like me. Randall tries to sweep it under the rug, claims it's a typo, but Blake's not having it. He pulls the backup models, checks every formula. Meanwhile, I get sent home with pay, like a polite way of telling me to vanish. Twist is, the story doesn't end there, because Meera tracks me down later that night, eyes shining. She found audit logs. The projections were altered 6 days ago, deliberately, by Randall's assistant. Blake's redoing the pitch, and my name is on the memo. That should have felt good, but mostly I felt like I'd stepped onto a chessboard and someone just flipped it. The next morning, headlines blow up. Waitress uncovers multi-million-dollar error. People call me a hero. Some trolls say it's a setup. I scroll through, wondering if I should have just kept my mouth shut. But then, weird stuff starts happening. A flash drive shows up in my mailbox. No note, no sender, just numbers and shadow payments. Meera and I dig. Offshore accounts, shell companies, money moving through a project called Cobalt Phase 3. We find out Randall's just a cog. Peter Heller, VP of Operations, is the architect, and there's a bigger fish, too. Suddenly, I'm not just exposing an error. I'm caught in something way, way bigger. Federal investigator James Holloway gets involved. "People like you are dangerous to people like them," he says, and for once, it sounds like a compliment. Everywhere I go, people are watching, literally. I get photos in my mailbox, warnings typed in red. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. The further we dig, the clearer it gets. Cobalt isn't just a project. It's surveillance sold to whoever pays, hidden by legal tricks, managed by a councilwoman, Catherine Vale, who's got all the paperwork locked tight. Every whistleblower before me got buried. Meera and I, we find the junior coder who built a failsafe, a way to expose the whole network. He's terrified, but hands us the drive, says, "Once this goes public, none of us are safe." We plan the drop, middle of the night, mirrored files, audio recordings, logs, even a threat list with my name at the top. I barely escape the lab, chased by security, heart in my throat, but James gets us to a safe house. And that's where the last twist lands. Blake, the CEO who believed me, is tangled up, too. The evidence shows he knew, maybe tried to help, maybe just to save himself. Meera looks at me, shaken. Even the good ones get dirty, she says. But the proof's there, and the final showdown is set. A shareholder compliance meeting, Catherine Vale at the head, icy as ever. I walk in, not as a server, but as the one holding the thread. We lay out the data, tie it to her digital signature, and when she tries to threaten me, "You're a server with a resume upgrade. Nothing more," I just smile. "You're right," I tell her. But the smallest voice can break the loudest lie. She realizes she's been recorded. And suddenly, it's all over but the fallout. Within 48 hours, federal charges drop. Vale's arrested, Blake's subpoenaed, Heller flees, and the media calls me the face of truth. People keep asking if I feel like a hero. I don't. I just feel seen, finally. But justice isn't clean. Old wounds ache, and the trolls still bark. I start a community center to teach kids digital literacy and the courage to speak up. That's my legacy. You know, sometimes the hardest thing isn't exposing a lie. It's holding on to your voice after, and that's why I'm here. If you're listening, if you've ever been dismissed, doubted, or pushed to silence, know this. Your voice matters, even if it shakes. Speak up. Question the formula. The truth doesn't need permission. And now, I want to hear from you. Where do you see injustice around you? What would you have done in my shoes? Share your story, your voice, in the comments. Because justice only lives when we all stop being invisible. Funny thing about the truth, just when you think you've dragged it into the light, it multiplies, splits off, takes on a life you couldn't have predicted even on your wildest, most exhausted night. After the storm broke, after the headlines ran wild and the charges landed, my name stopped being just a name and started feeling like a headline itself. Waitress turned whistleblower, the girl who cracked the code. But real life doesn't freeze on a single frame, you know? It keeps rolling, messy, unpredictable, with the echoes of what you did bouncing off every new wall you walk past. You want the honest part? Sometimes I missed invisibility. But that's a luxury you can't ever reclaim once you make power nervous. That IT was a week after the DOJ's press conference when my world changed again. I'd started spending my days at the new community center, Voice, our small attempt at making sure nobody else had to become a legend just to be heard. Mira was there, running digital literacy workshops for teens. James Holloway checked in almost daily, half mentor, half bodyguard now, because the truth is, being a public face for something that big paints a target on your back. Some folks smiled at me on the street, but a few, strangers in dark sedans, folks who asked too many questions about access logs at the front desk, gave me the chills. I learned how to tell the difference. Survival, I guess. Point one Monday, we got a message from a high school teacher in Missouri. Anonymous, careful. She'd found weird activity on her school's grading server, silent pushes of new performance monitoring code. It looked so much like Cobalt. I could practically smell Randall Kane's cologne. I looped in Mira, then Greer, who'd gotten his job and his life back after testifying. He took one look at the source code and said, "This isn't a copy. It's an evolution. They learned from the exposure, scrubbed the tags, and now they're testing on kids." That cold shiver came back, stronger than ever. Apparently, the game wasn't over. They'd just changed the rules.so. There we were. Me, Mira, Greer, James, and a couple of sharp young volunteers who'd joined after watching the hearings. We started piecing together a web of new shell companies, shell contracts, fake consulting firms. SableNet, True Facet Solutions, different names, same disease. This time, though, they were targeting low-income districts, using anonymous data as their shield and calling it learning optimization. I remember sitting in the empty Voice conference room, fluorescent light buzzing, thinking, this is how rot survives. It just finds new cracks to seep into. But we weren't the same, either. We had allies now, a tiny army. Daniel, a cybersecurity kid from Detroit, set up live packet tracing on SableNet servers. Aya, a former content auditor, taught our team how to spot algorithmic bias and subtle digital threats. We hit the ground, quietly, methodically, visiting schools under the guise of after-school program research. Principals were cautious, but one or two let slip that they'd signed blanket consent forms for innovative software trials. Kids were being profiled by a black box, and no parent even knew. That was our twist. The enemy had changed, but the weapons, secrecy, complexity, paperwork were the same old tricks. We weren't just fighting for justice. We were fighting for the right to know what was being done in our own communities. That I wish I could say this all went smoothly. In reality, the pressure built. Anonymous threats started up again, this time on burner phones and encrypted emails. One night, someone left a printout of my old apartment's lease on my car windshield. James took it seriously, ramped up our countermeasures, kept reminding me, "Maya, you set something in motion bigger than all of us." I tried to sleep, but the old anxiety was back, only now it wore a new face. I was scared, but I wasn't going back to being invisible. That we gathered proof, quietly, piece by piece. Daniel hacked into an unsecured dev portal, Aya scraped metadata, and Greer reverse-engineered the student tagging code. What we found was sickening: real-time emotional analysis, behavioral prediction, all piped straight into dashboards at SableNet's HQ. And, buried in the logs, a list of pilot schools, kids being turned into data points without anyone's knowledge. This time, we moved faster. We packaged the evidence, coordinated with a network of trusted journalists. No time for heroics, just facts. I sat down for a PBS interview, live, no script, and laid it all out. They said this was about performance, but it's surveillance by another name. Kids deserve better. We all do. By the end of the week, the internet exploded. Parents filed lawsuits, teachers went public, and within 48 hours the Department of Education announced an emergency inquiry. SableNet's servers vanished, but we'd gotten there first. The documents were everywhere. The fallout was familiar: panic, blame, denial. But this time, something changed. People showed up, real people from all over. Teachers, parents, coders, old janitors who remembered me from the ballroom days. They flooded the voice inbox with stories, questions, and, yeah, some ugly threats too, but mostly hope. I realized then, I wasn't alone anymore. That's what whistleblowing does if you let it. It creates a crack that lets more light in, a path for other voices to follow. In the end, I stood at the front of the community center, staring at a packed room full of faces: kids, parents, teachers, a few reporters, James in the back with his arms crossed, and a rare, real smile. I said, I was invisible until I spoke. But now, none of us are. This fight isn't just mine. It's all of ours. Don't let anyone tell you your voice doesn't matter. So here's my question for you. If you've made it this far, what would you do if you saw injustice hiding in plain sight? Would you speak up or stay silent? Share your truth below, because this movement, this fight, doesn't end with me. It starts with all of us. Speak up, even if your voice shakes. Let's see how far this echo goes.